Homeowners, what unexpected hidden gem did you discover in your house after buying it that wasn't mentioned in the listing or by the previous owners? The area behind our house was just brush and not very impressive, but the city ended up buying it and rewilding it. For the first 5 years, they just let it grow, and then they did a controlled burn, and now we have a forest with a walking path behind our house 10 years later. And every June, for the whole month, it's full of fresh wild raspberries. We have a herd of deer, a fox, ground squirrels, hawks, eagles, wild pheasants, and hundreds of rabbits. It was like winning the lottery. Yeah, this is actually really amazing. I would love to visit or see this place. It's like walking into the set of a Bambi movie or something. Really cool. Next story. I found the original owner's wedding rings. The mother died in childbirth in 1928. The dad died in an accident in 1932. We bought the house from the daughter, who was in a nursing home, in 2001. She had been raised by an aunt and had never been back to the house. I sent her the rings and a bunch of photos. She was ecstatic to receive them. She died and left me as her sole heir. It was only like $10K, but super nice. Plus, I got the rings back. Next story. I moved in with my girlfriend who bought a small house. I said, "How do you turn on the food disposal?" She said there isn't one, despite the drain saying "incinerator." I looked under the sink. The thing was unplugged. She'd lived there not knowing for a year. Then she complained about the dishwasher being great, but looking crappy. The finish was hard to clean and had scratches. 2 months later, I was cleaning it and what the F is this frilly thing at the edge here? Previous owners had never removed the plastic cover from the stainless. Brand new finish. Next story. Newspapers from 1928 underneath the tile, vinyl, and rubber floors. They have advertisements for coal and ice and vaudeville shows with blackface characters. Calvin Coolidge shooting a gun on the front page, and the big sports story was 2 completed forward passes in a football game. Yeah, this just sounds like a straight-up time capsule. Almost 100 years ago. What a different world we live in today. Makes you wonder how things will be 100 years from now. They're probably going to act like the world that we live in is like the Dark Ages, dinosaurs, you know? Next story. The former owners were moving across the country. They wound up leaving me most of their furniture and their cat, with my consent, of course. Nice furniture and the best cat ever. Edit. The former owners would have taken her if I declined to keep her. They were driving across country with a large dog and toddler to their new home. They thought it would be a lot to put a 10-year-old cat through. They were good people thinking of what would be best for her, and I think we all made the right decision. Next story. When we first toured the house, the walls were full of paintings. The seller's late husband was a prolific amateur artist. A few months after we moved in, we discovered a rolled-up canvas in our bedroom closet, which, upon unrolling, we also discovered a topless portrait of the seller. Next story. All the doors in my condo were white flat/slab doors that you might get from Menards or Home Depot, with basic modern door handles, or so I thought. They ended up being solid wood doors, put together like butcher block, with a mahogany veneer and a beautiful inlay. I've been stripping and sanding each one down and staining. They are gorgeous. Next story. When my wife and I bought our forever home, I kept finding railway spikes, a few, every time I would drag the gravel driveway. My great-grandfather on my dad's side, died before I was born, used to own a logging business just a few miles from here. Did some digging into it and found that all of the logs in my log home came from his business in the 60s. It's kind of nice to think that his home was meant to be mine. Next story. A large mason jar filled with a bunch of old silver coins. This was back in 2016. The previous homeowners were retiring to Florida. When the offer was accepted below asking price, they did buy it around 1965 in San Diego and sold it for 10 times more. The old man showed everything about the home, what he did, the odds and ends, and what to watch out for. Ended up contacting the selling realtor and shipping it to him. Months later, I got a check for the shipping price and 1940 mercury dime that I've been using as a golf ball marker ever since. Next story. The hidden gem was our neighbors. 2 other young families bought just after us, and we're all great friends. Our other neighbor is an elderly lady. It makes such a difference having nice neighbors. They're in for the long run too, not flippers. Next story. All the kitchen drawers had handles in the shape of a salamander. It was one of the first things we changed, until I got to the ones on the fake drawers where the sink is. Turns out, because of the way the sink and knobs are structured, they can't come out. So we have like 20 matching pulls and knobs, and 2 salamanders. Next story. A strawberry patch in the backyard. We bought the house in the winter, so we didn't discover it until the spring. We've enjoyed it ever since. We also found a bunch of old-fashioned skeleton keys in the cupboard. All the doors had been replaced in the house, so they didn't fit anything, but they are a novelty. We have them displayed in a shadow box. Next story. Not so much a hidden gem, but in college I rented an off-campus house. On move-in day, I was walking around with my landlord when we opened a closet door to see a bunch of my dad's friends' names scratched into the wall. It had been their house about 30 years prior. Was awesome having them come visit and tell us all their old college stories. More of a fun coincidence than a gem, but it was so crazy to find. Next story. I owned a terraced house in Surrey, England in the 80s. It was quite old, but had a long back garden. One summer, I decided I'd dig a flower bed along one fence. As I was nearing the end of the garden, I hit some metal, so digging was taking a while. During that time, the old lady who lived next door wandered down and told me, "There's a car under there." She had lived there all her life and told me that in the late 30s, prior owners had a car accident and rode off their car. They dug a big pit at the end of the garden and rolled the car into it. I was digging up part of the chassis, the cables for the brakes, and a bit of the floor. I stopped digging then. I have no clue if it has caved in since then. Next story. The whole house is made of concrete, from the foundation to the reinforced concrete walls up to the ceiling. Then, if that wasn't enough, there's massive concrete pillars and railways, metal beams reinforcing everything. This is for a bungalow home that's about 1,400 square feet. Inspector said we could take the roof off and add a whole level without requiring additional support. Great for noise, insulation, keeping bugs and critters out. Bad when you want to do a renovation and your only option is to start jackhammering. Next story. Bought a nice sized piece of property with a rickety cabin on it. Well, turns out the previous owner was schizophrenic and hand dug a secret bunker underneath the cabin. I discovered the access door when I went to throw out the dilapidated couch and filthy rug in the living room. The bunker walls were covered in maps and firearms, not to mention the wooden box of dynamite in the corner, and there was a large workbench with a bunch of electrical equipment on it, along with several older model computers that all looked like they'd been taken apart and modified numerous times. Inside an open safe welded to a steel plate bolted to the floor and framed with cement was about 50 ounces of gold and approximately $30,000 in cash. Each gold bar and round had a heart stamped in it. Next story. The ad and the owners did not mention that the backyard contained botanical garden level flowering trees and a waterfall/frog pond. When the snow melted, we were delighted. It has been fun seeing perennials pop up everywhere too. Next story. Backyard is shared with the house behind us. Tree line made it look like a 60-40 split in their favor. When we got a survey done to put in a fence, we learned that it was actually 90-10 in our favor. His backyard was more of just a walkway to the side of his house where his proper yard was supposed to be. Our backyard went from just being a decent yard to being a huge feature of the property. Fence ended up being a lot more expensive, though. Next story. In no particular order, an apple and blueberry orchard completely occluded by 50-plus years of blackberry brambles, a view of the Olympics mountain range, a really girthy dildo tucked away in a lazy Susan, a terrifying well under a concrete slab in the master bedroom of a house connected to a DB Cooper, a bunch of mint classic rock LPs. Yes, you've got all of these really beautiful things, and then, of course, gotta have the dildo and the lazy Susan. One of these things is not like the other. Next story. When repairing the garage, I found a tin box wedged between the inside sheetrock and the outside shingles. First thing I saw when I opened it was a gaggle of ants. I left it opened on the ground in the yard. An hour later, the ants were gone. Inside were 7 vintage fashion brand watches, like Gucci, Chanel, etc. 3 vintage heavy silver chains and 2 gold chains. House was built in 1944 and changed owners 5 times before I bought it. Next story. The previous owner of our house was the daughter of a super high-profile attorney. She was a high-level exec of a bank, so they had FU money. She left behind a mini fridge completely stuffed with brand new, unopened, high-end cosmetics, serums, lotions, makeup, hair products, supplements, the works. That felt like a major score. Next story. An incredible mountain view. We toured and purchased our home in the winter in Oregon, so primarily overcast and gray weather that time of year. The first sunny, clear day, we look out our back window and bam! Clear shot of Mount St. Helens. Was an incredibly pleasant surprise considering there was no mention of the view in the listing. Next story. We bought our house from our close friends a few years ago, so there were several hidden items we were supposed to find. My favorite was discovered around the 4th of July 2022. We moved in February of 2022. My friends were very into fireworks, so I remembered seeing what I thought were some form of fireworks in the garage. So a few weeks prior, when people are testing out their new stuff sporadically in our area, I decide to see what my find can do. I'm not a complete moron, so I lit it in the street, and the boom was by far the loudest thing I've ever heard. All sound stopped for about 3 seconds, but then car alarms started going off in the distance. I found out later my friend had left quarter sticks of dynamite and forgot to tell me. Next story. We have a smokehouse designed for smoking meats as big as whole pigs in our backyard. It looked like a normal tool shed on first glance, and it wasn't mentioned in the listing. It's actually well set up and functional. We've smoked a lot of meats now and have made good use of it. Next story. A huge 300-pound concrete deer statue inside of a huge hydrangea bush that was in the middle of our front grass. We started whacking away at the bush to remove it and hit something hard. Spent a good 2 hours thinking it was a gravestone. We posted it on OfferUp and a guy showed up in a Prius and my husband and I loaded it into his back seat. Next story. I don't know if I would call it a hidden gem, but the previous owners left a perfectly good John Deere riding lawnmower, a newer washer and dryer, and a stand-up freezer. That was in 2018, and they all still work. Next story. The home was a gorgeous mid-century perched high on a hill. We walked inside, and thick, heavy curtains blocked a wall of windows that lined the rear of the home. We opened the curtains and realized the home had panoramic views from the mountains to the ocean. Absolutely zero mention of the views at all. I even saved the listing because we were so shocked. We made an offer immediately. Terrible agent for the seller, but luckily I represented myself. I'm a licensed agent. I will never sell this house. Next story. Lots of wetlands currently owned by the town behind our house/yard. They're far enough from my property that it hasn't impeded anything we've wanted to do on our own property, nor do we have water issues as we're on high ground. But it stopped anyone doing anything at all with the town-owned property, including the town. Years back, the town wanted to build an additional access road to a town building located behind my property. The EPA shut that down fast and permanently. So the back of my house looks out on wooded land and always will, and our yard is very private. Yay, wetlands. Next story. I bought a fixer-upper from someone who had a pretty troubled life. They were supposed to clear out all the garbage but left a lot of stuff behind, including a busted upright piano. The plus side, though, was a garden shed full of garden tools, including 3 lawnmowers, and a mantis tiller that just needed a little work to get running. And the best/most valuable thing was a box full of old silver and collectible coins and money. I sold it to a coin shop for around $900. I'm sure I could have gotten more for it if I'd tried, but it wasn't worth the hassle at the time, and the cash was much needed to fund the renovations. Next story. We just bought a house a bit outside of a small city. It's on a wooded 2-acre lot, so sizable but not huge. When we came for the inspection, I walked around the property to take stock of everything. The listing noted a chicken coop and hot tub, but didn't talk much about the rest of the site. As I walked around, I found that a little stream crossed near the edge of our land, complete with a flat clearing beside it, perfect for camping or having a fire pit. That was something I always wanted, but figured it was way too niche to make a requirement while house hunting. Looking forward to many years of enjoying it with my son. Yeah, this is very cool. Not man-made. Sometimes Mother Nature just takes care of your wants and needs. You just gotta believe. Next story. There is a whole room not pictured in the listing. Nice view of the front yard plus 2 spacious closets. My son and I now share it as a home office. Also, a giant apple tree in the backyard. We knew about it when we bought the house, but we had no idea how productive it would be. I bought a fruit press, and I put away up to 10 gallons of cider every summer. Next story. Literally found a gem, a diamond stud earring that I heard clinking around inside our vacuum cleaner while I was cleaning our basement a few weeks after we moved in. It was bigger than the diamond engagement ring I originally gave my wife 2 years earlier. She added the new diamond to her existing ring. Next story. Not me, but my aunt. There was a world radio built into the wall in the basement. Quite big, like the size of a large microwave. Many dials, a map of the world, and you could tune into stations from anywhere, though it took quite a bit of patience. I thought it was both weird and wonderful. Next story. In my last house, I was in the attic space above the garage doing some work and lifted some of the boards and found a few dozen pill bottles full of prescription oxy, hydro, and other pretty powerful prescription pills. The labels had one of the previous owner's names on them and were all dated from the late 80s to early 2000s. Next story. Purchased a home in prime location in an extra large lot crippled by city easement, like 11K square feet in H-Call City. The seller agent told us I cannot do anything with half my lot, cannot build, cannot plant, nothing. The easement was extremely strict, so my yard was basically cut in half and sold for that price. Well, went with my lawyer to see if we can change the easement, and now I can use 90% of my lot. My realtor came back to have a drink with me 1 month after moving in, told me we just added 400 to 500K value to our home. Basically made that 5,000 square foot section that was bought for $1 per square foot into $80 to $100 per square foot. Overnight. Cost $2,400 of lawyer fees and about $10K of fences. No intention of selling it, but it always feels good to increase your net worth a few $1,000s. Next story. I know what you mean by gem, but I'm choosing to provide an alternate sarcastic interpretation. My house was built in 1900. I recently discovered that my central load-bearing wall, that's the main internal structure for my 2-story house, has a gap between the studs of 48 inches. 22-foot span of wall from doorway to doorway, holding an entire stone chimney in the middle. 5 studs. 5! Next story. In Ocean View, we bought the house as a bank foreclosure in 2008. The listing agent wasn't local and didn't know anything about the house. If you know San Diego, we have June gloom, and it's very overcast and cloudy all through the month, which is when we toured it and did inspections. A couple of weeks after we closed, we had the opposite weather and bam! We can see the ocean. We're about 8 miles away, up on a hill, but it's a direct view of the water. Next story. When we moved out of my childhood home, I was devastated because I realized I would never eat some of the sweet cherries from my grandpa's cherished glass cherry tree. I loved them, and they were part of every summer of my life right up into my early 30s. I bought a house in the neighboring town with a small yard and some trees. Walnut, cherry, apple, pear, and plum in the backyard. And the very first summer, I discovered that one of the cherry trees was in fact a glass cherry. Because I played with the idea of planting a second one, I asked the daughter of the former, now deceased, owner if she knew where her father got the tree, and lo and behold, turns out he bought the sapling from my grandfather. My new tree is a direct descendant of the tree I grew up around. I really had to shed a tear that day. I know it's just something small, but I'm kind of on the emotional side. Opie, this is not small, this is huge, this is amazing, this is fate, this is destiny, and I hope that you continue the legacy of your grandfather's cherry tree. That is so cool. Next story. I've got a small pool of water on the back of my 9 wooded acres. In a downfall or drought, its dark, tannic water level is the same. The thing is shaped exactly like your classic Old West coffin, 6 corners with the shoulder. I have the sense that if I ever need to dispose of a body, this dark pool will simply absorb it into the wet, leafy litter, gone forever. I have absolutely no reason for knowing this, yet the moment I saw the pool, I knew. My dogs won't go near it. My trail cams tell me that deer love that area, yet they don't go near the pool, even when the nearby stream is dry. Some might ignore it, some might think this insufficient evidence that this is anything but a wet hole. I'm grateful for its presence. Every good thing must have darkness, and my 9 acres are a safe Vermont haven. Next story. Ooh, I've got a good one here. Found a box in the far corner of the basement that got missed. Inside, I found all sorts of documents from the previous owner and found out she was an English teacher in the area for years. Found essays she had written in college on a typewriter. The crown jewel was the original land deed for the property from the 40s. The house was built in 1960. Turns out the family who owned the house originally owned something like 100 acres on this side of the highway. Next story. At the house I raised my son in, I had installed a 2x2 door above his closet that led to a secret kids' room in the attic. You had to duck and crawl for about 4 feet, and it led to a 10x8 perfect kids hideout, complete with a skylight I also put in for light. Didn't tell the realtor as it was not permitted, just said it was attic access. I never met the buyer. I left her and she bought me out, then sold about a year later, so I don't know if they had kids. Next story. Quietest street/neighborhood in the entire area. No one drives down this street unless they live here or are making a delivery. Yet less than 1 mile from 4 grocery stores, countless amazing restaurants, all kinds of shopping, hair salons, massage, spas, and a park that hosts food trucks every Thursday and farmers market every Saturday. This is not an elite area. I paid a smidge over $300K okay for my renovated condo. Also, not many children. It's like a retirement community, but it's not. It's absolutely the best thing about living here, and I love my condo too. Next story. The oven fan was fake. Like, there was even a whole chimney-like thing to make it look like it was ventilating. It was pretty, but after a number of years, it was finally time to replace it because it was making too much noise. That's when we found out the chimney thing was solid. I guess it explained why I was always so dizzy when I tried to cook. For the record, I suppose technically we could have had legal recourse if we wanted to, but we bought it off a really old lady who said that the owner before her did a lot of DIY renovation. She had also done renovations since, but through a reputable company. We could always tell which weird part of the house was from who by the quality of it. Next story. My house was listed with about 10.5 acres. After surveying, it was discovered there was another 0.75 acre in my fence line that wasn't on my deeds or any other neighboring deed. The survey company wrote me up what I needed and I went down to the court to claim it. Visually, I didn't get anything extra, but the total was more. Of course, this was after I closed on the house and only received one of the 3 deeds. Turned out the property was split and I technically only owed 1 acre and the house for a brief period. I had no idea it was a split until I went to register with the country, somehow missed by both realtors and the law firm that did the closing. It was an estate sale, so the law firm had to get all the siblings back in to sign off that they did intend to sell the entire thing at once, as advertised. The kitchen and dining room floor is also about an inch higher than the adjoining hallway and living room. I suspect there might be some interesting flooring that was covered by the newer laminate that runs through the whole house, but I haven't had the funds to deal with it if I pull it up, and there's something other than a hardwood equivalent under there. Next story. The house was sideways on a hill and had a sunken garage about 75% the height of a story down from the main floor, with the living room extending out over a bricked-in space between house and garage. Turns out, the garage used to be much larger and part had been converted into a sort den or office, which was later chopped down and closed off and the living room extended over it. Thing is, that room was pretty much left intact during remodeling, so still had a counter and cabinets on the walls and even a working electrical outlet. Us kids found the former door space to the room behind storage, so this fairly large carpeted 5-foot-high room hidden under the living room became our secret fort. It had seemed for some time been used for storage, so we found various goodies including old magazines and liquor. We crammed some beanbag chairs inside and would sneak girls in. It was discovered because some a-hole kids ignored the keep quiet rules, and our mother heard commotion from below the living room and managed to suss out our entrance. Next story. We grew up in the old house that was built before everything around it. The year on the deed just said old. Clearly, it had been renovated a handful of times and added onto at some point. First off, we had an about 90-year-old lady show up randomly telling stories about growing up in the house. Once she entered the living room, she teared up about the missing fireplace. Sure enough, my father took a hammer to the wall and found a brick fireplace behind it. It was a bit of a duh moment, as that explains this rectangle hole in the floor plan on each floor and the literal chimney on the roof. We assumed it was just for the boiler. Then there's the freaking basement organ. The basement was a typical unfinished old house basement with low ceilings. In the back of the basement was an organ, music, not medical. We decided to try and get rid of it, as it wasn't being used and was probably worth something to someone else. The first problem was that it was heavy as hell, but it was also too tall and wide to physically leave the basement in one piece. It must have been lowered while building the house or assembled in place later. Anyways, that organ blocked a door which led under the basement steps. As expected, it was just a little storage area, but in the storage area was another door that led to a room underneath the crawl space. We investigated later and found out that it was allegedly a stop on the Underground Railroad. All my friends who stayed the night claimed they thought it was haunted. I don't believe in ghosts or anything, so I chalked it up to the fact that the house made lots of noise compared to a modern house. Next story. I just bought my first place and moved in 3 weeks ago. We absolutely loved the place when we saw it, made an offer, and were super excited when it was accepted. After the offer was accepted, my girlfriend and I were talking about how the only thing it was missing was like a basement space with a workshop and random storage. We showed up to do the inspection a couple of weeks later and were notified that there is an enclosed carriageway that also belonged to us now. It's about 300 square feet, has racks of storage space, and a full workbench. Also, the previous owners left a standing freezer in there full of food. Next story. Just closed on a house last week. The listing looked good and all, but when we toured the house and opened a storage closet, there were tons of pegs for keys, with some keys still there. They were all labeled and one said cabin keys. The property is 37 acres, and there was no mention of a cabin. However, there was a mowed path. We followed it and came across about 10 beautiful waterfalls flowing through small ponds, all definitely man-made. At the end was an adorable 17 by 20 cabin with a small loft. It's off-grid at the moment, but there's electric run to it underground, just no meter at the pole. There's a cute little wood stove, a beautiful rock mantelpiece, and a screened-in back porch overlooking a creek, even an outhouse. All of that is what sold us on the property, and I would bet most people who looked at the house never even knew it was there. The main house is pretty good, but might not have been our first choice had we not found the cabin and waterfalls. The other realtor never even mentioned it to ours. We also gained an acre on the survey. None of that was mentioned in the listing. I would love to know what state or province or country this is in where you can just casually purchase, 37 acres of land with all of these bells and whistles. Certainly not Southern California, where I live, I can guarantee you that. Next story. Didn't realize that our neighborhood was surrounded by so much open space and with a golf course and a lake on the north and the south. Development is mostly blocked. That means it's off the beaten path as far as traffic. They then turned a 20-acre open space half-block away into an off-leash dog park, and to top it off, turned another 15,000 acres to the west into a wildlife refuge. Next story. There is a thermostat on the wall, an oil-fired boiler in the crawl space, and an underground oil tank almost full in the backyard. The old lady who owned the place had no idea that it had a heating system. The realtor knew it was there, but couldn't get it to work, so they didn't mention it in the listing. I cleaned out the flue and fixed the water pump, and it worked great. It circulates hot water through copper pipes that are set on the subfloor, covered with construction paper, galvanized chicken wire, 2 inches of cement, and topped with quarry tile. 15 years ago, I replaced the boiler with an on-demand electric water heater. It's 73 years old and still working. Heating costs are about $200 a month. Warm floors are really nice. The cats know where the hottest spots are. Next story. My 1,600 square foot house has 2 pocket doors. One separates the butler pantry from the main kitchen so we can hide the cooking mess from the guests when we host dinner parties. The other one separates the main open concept area from the hallway to the bedrooms. We have 2 small kids, so being able to close off that hallway after their bedtime and not have to tiptoe around is great. Next story. There's a coal chute in my house. The house was built back in like the 40s to 50s, and they were using this weird room in under the stairs to store hunting stuff. I looked around later and noticed a loose panel, but no air was passing through the cracks. I pulled it off, and there was a little window there towards the top of the wall. I did a little research, and it was a coal window. Basically, the truck would pull up, and the window would open outwards. They would shovel the coal in to fill the room and close it off, then drive off. There were also 3 exhaust windows down there for the coal burning. The whole downstairs was designed to prevent monoxide poisoning and make coal deliveries easier. Next story. Upstairs laundry room, and it has a window and storage closet right next to all the bedrooms. It wasn't mentioned or pictured in the listing, but it was a huge selling point for me. I used to have to go down 2 flights of stairs carrying a heavy hamper in order to do laundry in the dark garage next to spiders and stuff. Our movers weren't happy that they had to bring our washer and dryer upstairs, but I'm thrilled. Next story. Not quite what you're asking, but when I moved across the country, I had no furniture. I bought it when I got to my new place from places like Marketplace. I bought an entire queen bedroom set, took it home and used it for a year. I ended up buying a house and moving at the end of the year. When some people I hired to unload the truck at the point of removing a dresser, they called me over to point out a bunch of stuff that had fallen out of one of the drawers. When I looked at it, I didn't recognize anything. Apparently, a bunch of stuff was in the void below the drawer since before I bought it. I had no idea it was there at all. Well, there is a luxury watch in there. It absolutely does not fit my style. I tried to find who I bought it from, but that was not possible. I sold the watch for $1,500. Next story. Absolutely amazing neighbors. We were told that the mountain community here was nice, but didn't realize how nice they really are. Everyone offers to lend me tools, offer help with projects, is happy to share lore of the area, help with downed trees, and everyone commits to cleaning up the shared road twice per year. My wife also loves the sound of crickets at night and helps her fall asleep. In the suburbs, we are lucky if we heard a single cricket outside. Here, there are dozens of different kinds of crickets, all chirping around everywhere here. It's truly magical out here. Next story. I was a kid when this happened, but my dad was renting a 2-bedroom duplex. We knew all about the attic, but didn't have a key. The landlord eventually decided to get the lock switched out in the attic, so we could just see what was inside. Even though we didn't have any bugs, he wanted to be on the safe side. There was a bunch of stuff left up there from previous owners that hadn't been touched in probably a decade. He told my dad and I that we could keep anything from that attic that we wanted. The other side was rented out, but they didn't have a way to access the attic from their side, so he wasn't in a hurry with replacing the lock. There was also no way to physically access or see the attic from outside. My friends and I tested this extensively because it was summer and we were bored. My best friend and I spent an entire year going through everything in the attic and keeping what we thought was cool. Granted, we were in our early teens, so the stuff we kept makes sense for that age group. I did end up keeping a few decorative pieces that I use now. It's such a fun, heartwarming story. My dad's landlord was the best and was super patient with me and let my dad break his no pet rule without even paying a deposit, etc. I had lost my mom, so he moved us into the duplex before the court could force me to live with my grandpa. Sometimes I wonder if my dad asked if he'd do that because suddenly my dad was working on projects for our landlord as a rent reduction kind of thing. No one has said otherwise and still lets me believe in this harmless conspiracy theory to this day. The pieces were just really old decorative trays that you'd expect to see at our 80-year-old grandma's house. It has roses on it and it absolutely is gaudy, but I love it. I use it on my coffee table as a little cute set your keys or phone down station. Next story. Previous owner custom built my house and did most of the work. Man was a genius with the little things he did that I keep finding. We live in an area where negative 40 degrees Celsius is not abnormal, nor is plus 40 in the summer. He put the hot water tank right next to the outdoor faucet, one of the extremely cold ones, and the lines run close to it. Not that I would, but I could run it dead of winter. Main water lines direct from well run through our pantry, keeping it a steady 5 to 6 degrees all year round if you keep the door closed. This is a small example of the things he did. Now I have nothing on my parents' house for a find. Old Georgian farmhouse they bought in the late 60s. Previous owners put a sunroom on as an addition. Had the classy thick green shag carpet in it. Parents kept that room as a TV/playroom while we were growing up. Lots of padding, and who cared if we wrecked the carpet? Well, we got older and tore it out. Underneath, freaking 4 inches thick, high-end Italian marble. We're talking 6x6 or 8x8, slabs of it. Each one did say have a small corner broken where the broken bit was cemented in, so probably bought it at a discount at the time. Now, however, those slabs are almost complete. Some are. This is the high-end Italian marble too, with the black lace/lightning through it. I can't imagine what it would cost now. Also, house had an oil furnace with steam radiators, which, in addition to this, was ran through the floor. So, heated floor too. 20 years between my sibling and I with that crappy shag carpet of frickin' solid marble. Room was 20 by 32, approximately, so about 600 square feet of 4-inch thick frickin' marble. Next story. Not me, but when I was in middle school, my parents bought a house way out in the middle of nowhere. I actually hated it because I was so far away from everything and had to ride over an hour on the bus each way for school. Anyway, there was a huge wall-sized window in the back of the house and a hidden spiral staircase that opened right up at that window. Well, one of the neighbors down the road had horses that often got loose from their fence and for some reason would wander into our yard. Quite often I'd walk downstairs for school in the mornings to be greeted by a lovely horse or two looking in that window. Always made my day a little brighter. Next story. The neighbors. Bruce loves mowing lawn and will just casually mow mine. Kevin beats me to snow blowing my driveway 50% of the time. Deborah brings me homemade soup monthly when, quote, she was trying out a new recipe and made too much. Jess brings in my mail and feeds my cats when I'm away for long weekends, etc., etc. And somehow none of them are chatty or nosy. I won the neighbor lottery and have nothing to offer in return except gift cards for Christmas. Next story. I bought a nice mid-century home and the listing stated that everything in the house was included in the sale. When we toured it, it was furnished and had everything in place from the previous owners, but we figured that the family would clean it out. Didn't happen. When we did the final walkthrough, they left all the furniture, dishes, clothes, appliances, and personal items along with a detached 2-story garage with a carpenter's workshop on the second floor full of tools. Everything was neatly placed too, like they were cut out and would be back any minute. And so I understand like large lumbering things like furniture and things like that, but like clothes and personal items, why would you leave that behind? I'm just wondering like what would cause that. That's interesting. Next story. Not so much was too unexpected as we had rented the house and lived here for 5 years before buying it. However, the surprise was having a land survey and learning our backyard was significantly bigger than we believed. The poor neighbors behind us literally have like a 10-foot strip and the rest is us. Most of their yard is on the side of their house. The fridge was old but fine, or so we thought when we got the house. Figured we just replaced it a few years when we had more money. Well, it's now been 6 years and we're not replacing it till that thing dies. Best fridge ever. It was made in 1994 and is older than me. Off-white cream color, but man, oh man, does it work. Literally the only appliance I haven't had to either get repaired or replaced, including several newer appliances.